What's going on, Bills Mafia? We have some major Buffalo Bills rumors to discuss on the cornerback position on today's show. But before we get into all of that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I'm trying to throw out a little challenge for the Bills Mafia out there today. The most subs that we've gained on a video in this channel's short existence so far is 207. On today's video, can we beat that number? Can we get 208 diehard Buffalo Bills fans to hit that big red sub button? Totally free. Bills content every single day. We'll have you covered like nobody else on YouTube, as we are less than 3 weeks away from the 2025 NFL Draft. Go down below and hit that sub button and lock us in. What's going on, Bills Mafia? You're watching the Bills Breakdown by Chat Sports. I am your host, Tyler Smith, and on today's show, we got to discuss the elephant in the room, and that's that the Bills have a glaring need at the cornerback spot. Obviously, everybody loves talking about, oh, we need a run stopper, we need a big guy to fill in the gaps at the defensive tackle spot. We're not deep there, and that's correct. Oh, we need to address wide receiver, we need to get Josh more weapons. Well, the Bills run by committee, where I believe that the biggest hole on this roster at this point is at that CB2 spot. And Buffalo has a couple different routes that they could go to address the position. They could go to the NFL draft where they have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds. They could go to free agency and look external at maybe a player who was recently released. We'll talk about him later on the show. Or they could go look at a player who was a starter on Buffalo's defense in 2024 and still might have some gas left in the tank. If you guys look at the Bills cornerback depth chart at this point, obviously 2 out of 3 of the starting CBs are locked up. You just got Chrisitan Benford back on a really big discount, in my opinion, less than $20 million a year for your starting CB1 for years to come. Taron Johnson obviously holding things down at that nickel spot, but Dane Jackson, who they brought back after spending a season in Carolina in NFL free agency this offseason, he is your starting CB2 at this moment. And to be quite honest with you, I just don't think that Dane Jackson should be the week 1 starter, or at least we shouldn't want Dane Jackson to be the week 1 starter. I don't think everything is going to implode. I don't think he'll be the worst player in the whole wide world. They gave him an $8 million contract, but I'm not so sure that I'm super comfortable with having him as the number 2 cornerback opposite Chrisitan Benford, a spot that Buffalo struggled in last year. Kind of Kyrie Elam couldn't get his footing. They end up trading him away. And now you're looking at he's a replacement level guy. Like the Bills should be aiming bigger than Dane Jackson at that spot. So that's what we're going to go on ahead and look for today, as there's a couple different avenues that Buffalo could go down. Let's start with the draft. As I mentioned, Buffalo has 3 picks in the first 2 rounds of the 2025 NFL Draft, and they have already started to use a couple of their pre-draft visits on the blue chip corners in this class. We'll talk about one real quick. The most recent one that came out was Trey Amos, who the Ole Miss cornerback, 6'1". He's good in man coverage. He's good in zone. He feels like a guy who's able to be startable upon year 1 in the NFL. And he didn't have a ton of opportunity back in Louisiana a couple years ago, and then Alabama didn't really find his footing a ton. But man, once he got to Oxford, Mississippi, he was an absolute dog, making plays on the ball night in and night out. 16 PBUs back in 2024, only allowed 2 touchdowns. Basically less than around 60% or 50%, completion rate, only 280 yards on the entire season and 13 games played at a passer rating of 54.5. So this guy knows how to play the cornerback position, no doubt about it. And he's gotten better every single season that he's been in college. Like you remember at the Alabama, there wasn't as much production as you could have asked for from a guy transferring from the Sun Belt over to the SEC. But he had production back with the Raging Cajuns. We all see though, he really blossomed once he got in that talented Lane Kiffin defense out there in Oxford in 2024. So Trey Amos is a player who's been mocked up to Buffalo over the past couple of mocks from guys like Matt Miller of ESPN. So could he be an option for Buffalo at pick number 30, or maybe one of their picks in the second round if he falls? I think he's definitely an option. Another pre-draft visit that Buffalo has is Siobhan Ravel Jr. This is like the textbook, guy who is being looked at as the speed demon of the cornerback spot in this class. He is unbelievable when it comes to tracking receivers on vertical routes. He has to get a little bit better in ball coverage and passes defended and stuff like that. But he is a intriguing talent. Now, he only played in 3 games this past year. He did suffer a season-ending injury, and that is a concern. Buffalo's had injury concerns for their cornerbacks in the past, but the production that he was, on track for in 2024 was absolutely awesome. He allowed a passer rating of less than 50. That's insane. Still had managed to have 2 picks in those first 3 games of the season. almost a 40% completion rate. Like, that is absolutely awesome. And then you look back to what he did in 2023, like similar numbers, 14 PBUs. This guy knows how to play ball. And I'll admit, yeah, he's playing at East Carolina. It's not the greatest competition out there in the American Conference. But, at the end of the day, this guy can just ball, and he's got the physical attributes. He is kind of fits the mold that Brandon Beane has kind of wanted to address this offseason, and adding speed on the boundaries. So Siobhan Ravel Jr., another guy they've had in for a visit, and somebody who I could absolutely see getting selected for Buffalo in that second round, or maybe, who knows, pick 30 because an option as well. He's a really, really good player. Another player who's an option at that 30 spot, Maxwell Harrison. Now, he's not scheduled for a Bills pre-draft visit just yet, but a lot of mocks and a lot of really talented and in the know NFL analysts out there, they believe that Harrison fits Buffalo's scheme to a T. This is a guy who is excellent in man-to-man coverage, can stick on a receiver if you ask him to on the boundary, but he also isn't afraid to lay the boom and hit you, man. And even at 5'11", only 183 pounds, like, this guy is not afraid to tackle, and we know that Buffalo likes their corners to be able to get up in open space and wrap up defenders. I mean, Harrison, he only played 7 games this past season, but the production was there as well. Didn't allow a touchdown in those 7 games, had 5 PBUs, one interception, so he knows how to turn the ball over a little bit, and wasn't getting too burned in coverage for the most part. Like, this guy is a stud athlete and is just another guy who I think that Buffalo should have on their radar here. I would assume that they're going to bring him in for a pre-draft visit at some point, as they have already scheduled Trey Amos, have already scheduled Ravel Jr. Like, there's a real option here for Harrison to meet with Buffalo before April 24th's first round. But I do believe that the Bills will draft a corner with their first of 3 picks. Whether they end up trading up, they could go get a guy like Jahdae Barron, but also they're in a position to kind of wait this thing out. Like, they can get to round 1 of the NFL draft when their pick's coming up and say, hey, maybe if we believe a team ahead of us wants to go out there and draft a corner that's on our radar and we're looking at him at this pick as well, they could trade up a couple of spots and go make that move. But I do believe that the Buffalo will try to add a starting level cornerback in their first 3 picks of the 2025 NFL draft. Out of those 3 guys that we mentioned on today's show, pick one to draft for me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. If you think it's Trey Amos, give me a TA. If you think it's Siobhan Ravel Jr., give me an SR. And if it's Maxwell Harrison, the speedster out of Kentucky, let me know by typing MW down in the comments section. Now, next up on Buffalo's options at the cornerback spot, yes, the external name is Jack Jones, somebody who's been incredibly productive over his NFL career so far, but there are concerns about Jack Jones, the guy. Ian Rappaport came out and released this news earlier today, actually. He said the Raiders are releasing cornerback Jack Jones. They were looking to trade him previously, but now he's on the market, and Buffalo is one of these cornerback-needy teams that Ian Rappaport is referencing in this tweet. Could Jack Jones be the option for Buffalo? I'm sure they could get him on a cheap deal, considering that, the Raiders, they couldn't even get a trade partner to deal with Jack Jones at this point. But back in 2023, he was awesome, man. He had 2 picks, ended up having 3 this year, but he only played 11 games back in the 2023 season, allowed a 56.3% completion percentage and only a 63% passer rating, or 63 passer rating. Like, that is unbelievable numbers for an outside cornerback. And let's be honest, the Raiders defense, especially in the back end, didn't have a ton of depth, so he was kind of shouldering a lot of the weight out there. But the numbers took a massive drop off in 2024, especially in 17 games, only having 1 more turnover forced. Yes, 16 PBUs, that's awesome. But it seems like he was targeted a ton because you allow the passer rating of 98.5. You allow the completion percentage that's 6 percentage points up than it was in 2023. And, not only are there concerns about his play dropping off of the cliff, but there's also concerns about his effort and character. That dates all the way back to when he was on the New England Patriots before landing in Las Vegas. Like, there are concerns about this guy, and I'm not so sure if Buffalo wants to take all those risks right now. Bringing in a guy who could potentially mess up this locker room, I don't know if it's the best option for Buffalo, but he's definitely a name to keep in mind because he is super talented and he's put up production in years prior. Also, in the NFL free agency sphere, could the Bills bring back Rasul Douglas? I really do think that this is a strong possibility at this point, as Douglas doesn't have the most robust market out of the remaining free agent cornerbacks available. That would go to Asante Samuel Jr. But Douglas is probably one of the next guys up after that. And remember this tweet from Alex Brasky, who's noted Brandon Beane saying that the Bills have not closed the door on bringing back Rasul Douglas and wide receiver Amari Cooper. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, as this offseason treks on. But the reason I'm bringing up Douglas here is because, Chrisitan Benford in his press conference following the extension was asked about Rasul Douglas and talked about how, much of a bond that they had on Buffalo's defense last season. And, Rasul Douglas had a response to it. Said, brother. Like, these guys are absolutely close. And I don't doubt that the Bills defense, thought of Douglas as a legit leader last season and thought of them as somebody that he can, they can continue to learn from and lean on as that veteran presence. Even though Chrisitan Benford just got a massive payday, he's still a young player in this league. Buffalo's extending a bunch of the young talents on the roster right now. I think Douglas is a good mentor to have for those guys, and he could be worth bringing back on a short-term, cheap deal. And it seems like he wants to be back in Buffalo. Like, you see the workout, videos that he's got on his social media over this offseason. He's wearing Bills shorts. Like, he's not, distancing himself from the organization. He's interacting with the players on social media. Like, this is absolutely an option that Buffalo could go back and retread. And, I mean, the GM, Brandon Beane, already said it. Like, he already said that this is a possibility that Buffalo could go out there and make. And I know, Douglas, his numbers really did fall off a cliff in 2024. Allowed 4 touchdowns, didn't have an interception. QB rating of 124 is quite disgusting, to be frank with you guys. But at the end of the day, this is a player who has shown that he can be an elite producer on Buffalo's defense, knows the scheme well, knows the coaching staff, is comfortable in his position. And does he have to play? Like, this could be a combination of where they bring back Douglas and draft a corner on day 1 or early on day 2. So, you can get the best of both worlds in this scenario. I do think Douglas is worth, at least exploring to bring back, as he seems to be very, very well liked in the Bills locker room. And I do think he still has a little bit left in the tank. I believe that, the door is not completely shut on him being a productive starter at this point. But who is your guy? Let me know down in the comment section. Who do you want the Bills starting CB2 opposite Chrisitan Benford to be in 2025? Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. I want to know who your guy is that should be CB2 for Buffalo next season. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Like I said, we're trying to throw out a little bit of a challenge. Get the most subscribers on a Bills breakdown video ever in the history of the channel. So go down below if you're a diehard Bills fan and hit that big red sub button for daily news and rumors videos, draft coverage, offseason, free agency signings, all that good stuff. Lock us in as your #1 source of Bills content on YouTube. I'm Tyler Smith. We'll see you guys all in the next one. And as always, go Bills.